Good afternoon, everybody. It's very exciting. I'm happy to be here with Brian Grazer. We have a long history, which we will talk about. But before we start, I'd just like you to look at a film, that short piece to introduce Brian. So why don't we run the film and then we'll get going.
How big is the universe?
Infinite.
How do you know for sure?
I don't, I just believe it.
It's the same with love, I guess.
Houston, we have a problem.
Either you're somebody or you're nobody.
Is it good for you?
I've had better.
Forget to thank me, baby. Don't forget to thank your cookie.
Self-sustaining civilization on Mars will be risky, dangerous, but it'll be the greatest adventure ever in human history.
Our songs, they're still growing, they're still emerging.
It's a bigger idea than just the concert. We all have the same struggles.
So that's a pretty good introduction. The fact of the matter is, just a slight, quick recap: 47 Oscar nominations, 276 Emmy nominations, $15 billion at the box office, 3 books, an imagined entertainment relationship with Ron Howard for almost 40 years. Best Picture, Beautiful Mind. Movies, Splash, Da Vinci Code, Frost Nixon, Friday Night Lights, Kindergarten Cop, Apollo 13, Beautiful Minds, and another 20 or 30. TV, Sports Night, Felicity, 24, Arrested Development, Empire, Friday Night Lights, and another, 80 more. Documentaries, all sorts of documentaries: Frida, Swagger, Dynasty, Bono, Lucy and Desi, Pavarotti, and one that's just out on Jim Henson, which I saw, which is great. So now you know who he is.
Thank you, Michael.
This conversation is supposed to be about the media, and I just want to put it in very quick context, and then I want to talk extensively to our guests. The legacy companies are all in trouble. Paramount, $10 a share. Warner Brothers, $7 a share. Disney, way down. Pay TV households, in 2013, they were 100 million. 2024, they're 57 million. 2027, they'll be 48 million. Half the business is gone. Broadcast, well, broadcast is a real problem. Lower ads, more platforms, competition, attention span, aging. Both of these costs are extremely high. Streaming has come in. We all know that. You now need 200 million subscribers to break even. For these companies, only 2 companies have that. Probably 3 companies will be out of business. What is the answer?
Hits.
And interestingly, well, you said it. Interestingly, in preparing for this, I tried to figure out what is it that is consistent that you haven't been able to kill these motion picture companies in 50 years. The broadcast companies are still around. You know, it is about story. It is about content. It is about it's about change. Whether it's a theater for Aeschylus or Shakespeare or the movie business, and then television comes in, and everybody thinks television is going to kill the movies, and then video comes in, and then VHS turns to DVD, and home video is going to kill television, and then you get to pay television, and that's going to... The fact of the matter is none of it has been killed. 1 and 1 has added up to 3. And the answer is the content. The content being made, and we have here probably the most influential, popular, quality content maker in Hollywood today. And what he does is what makes it all tick. And unfortunately, we're now going to hear what he does. There's no answer. Everybody that is of this level has come at it a different way. But let's start with you.
Okay.
Explain to me your youth. Explain to me, and I just want to know, because in studying for this, I mean, your hair alone is interesting. So, you came from Southern California. You
Right.
loved school, not right. You didn't love school.
No, I didn't love school, no. Oh, I had quite acute dyslexia, so I didn't love school. I was avoiding questions. I would, anything a dyslexic did, I did. So you're asked a question, you have a cough, and you leave the room. You find ways to distract other people, create decoys in the room. No, so I didn't love school.
How about sports?
I liked sports, and it turned out being cut from football enlightened me, and gave me the ability to make the movie Friday Night Lights and the TV series.
And you were cut in front of the entire football team, which was devastating.
In front of 250 kids in an auditorium.
Was that one of the most devastating? I remember being cut as well. That was devastating.
Super devastating.
But
good things came from it. Yes, go ahead, sorry.
Well, things like you learn that sports is not only about the stars, it's about the people that are trying to be stars and all of that kind of stuff.
Yeah, you learn about those vulnerabilities. You learn all the different things.
So how did you end up getting into USC?
Ooh, how did I get into it?
Well, you were
an
average student. You hated that.
Yes. No one's ever asked that question, actually. Well, the way I actually got in,
maybe I shouldn't have asked that question.
I had a speech teacher that said I should go to an occupational school, and so that wasn't the answer. I wasn't going to go to an occupational school. So instead, I went to a junior college for one semester. And in the one semester, I got my bearings, got straight A's, applied to USC, and found a way to lobby my way into USC.
So that's what I'm getting out, is the lobbying your way.
Yeah.
And working your way through life by figuring out how to get to people. So you were going to be a pre-med?
Pre-law.
Pre-law. And you went to USC Law School?
No, I went to USC undergraduate, got accepted to USC Law School, and was scheduled to go to USC Law School. In the interim, I heard that there was I need to get a summer job. That week, I overheard a conversation, which I eavesdropped upon, where 3 law school graduates were talking about the easiest summer job they ever had. One of them said, "Oh, I had the cushiest job. It was beyond easy. It was at Warner Brothers legal department." So I thought, wake up. legal department, Warner Brothers. So I overhear the conversation. I overhear the names in the legal department. I'm able to eavesdrop because I push the window back and enables me to have full access to the screen. And I close the drape so they don't see me. I call 843-6000, ask for the legal department. Turns out I get an interview that day and the job that day. And yes, it was the easiest job known to man.
And your job was to deliver materials and scripts and stuff to people around town?
Yes, my job was, if they were to ask me to do so, which took 2 weeks, sitting in the little office with no window, they go, oh, you're going to deliver some papers, the documents, to the Beverly Wilshire Hotel in Beverly Hills. We were in Burbank. And you're going to deliver them to Warren Beatty. And I heard of Warren Beatty. I didn't realize the full gravity of Warren Beatty, that he was the biggest star in the world. But I knew he was important. I drive to the hotel. I'm supposed to hand the papers directly to him. Some guy comes down, says, give me the papers, one of his assistants. I pivoted and I said, oh, the papers are invalid unless I hand them directly to Mr. Beatty. So the guy basically says, fuck you, like, give me the papers. And I said, no, I'm sorry. I'll have to take them back to Warner Brothers, and we'll just have to do this exercise once again unless I hand them directly to Beatty. I go upstairs, talk to Beatty, I hand him the papers, and I turn it into an hour-long conversation. At that point, I realized I could do this with anybody.
And you were now going to find out who anybody is. Lou Wasserman, you went to next?
Yes.
Lou Wasserman was the #1 executive in Hollywood probably forever, and was, people were scared to talk to him.
So what had happened is, because when I realized that I could talk to anybody, I started doing it every day. I'd create lists of people that were principally running the business. The master filmmakers, Mel Brooks, at the time, I can name all the directors that I met with, executives, and then the coup de grace would be to meet Lou Wasserman, as you point out. So I find a way. I always made my own calls. I still do today, even though I've, the assistants and things. I just do it, and I work, and the assistants. How do I put it different? I'll meet them in parking lots. I'll do whatever it takes to talk and relate to the assistants. I start doing that. Melody is Lou's.
By the way, let me just say, a lot of people don't know that Hollywood is run by the assistants, by the secretaries.
True.
If you're smart enough to know that, you can almost, on occasion, get to their boss.
Exactly. Very good.
So you got to Lou.
I got to Lou, but unlike everybody else, everyone else said yes, and I would get to sit with them, and could talk 20, 30 minutes, longer sometimes. Lou Wasserman, I walk, he's on the 15th floor. I walk towards Mr. Wasserman. There's people looking around. Who's Mr. Wasserman talking to? And instead of being invited into his office, he throws his hands up in the air and he goes, hold on, you're not coming in. And I could just feel right away energetically, he knew I had nothing. And so he says, wait right here. I wait right there, and he comes back with a pencil, a 2H pencil, I remember pretty vividly, and a pad, and he said, hold these. I hold them in my nervous hands, and he says, put the pencil to the paper, and it has greater value than it did as separate parts. Now, get out of here. And that was the end. I'm in the elevator, really embarrassed, thinking, wow, what a disaster. But then I thought to myself, well, I guess he made sense. I should have something. So I started writing, and I became, I'd write down little outlines and things like that. And I ended up writing, I would register, I'll cut to the chase. I wrote hundreds of these stories that would be either theoretically a movie or a television show. I ended up selling 2 of them as television shows to NBC, to a woman you would know named Deanne Barkley.
She worked for me.
She did, that's right.
Yes, right.
Yeah. And
not there.
Not yeah.
You never delivered
At
anything
ABC?
to me, by the way. Ever?
Too scared.
Oh, okay.
But I did work for you indirectly.
You did.
Yeah.
Ransom, that movie.
Yeah.
And others.
That was you.
And others. Yeah.
And then when you were at Paramount, I had a television deal. Well, you might not remember this. You want to hear a story you don't know?
The reason I remember it is I'm going to get to your hair in a second.
Okay.
The reason I
Yeah.
remember it is your hair.
Okay.
Yes. What? Tell me the story.
Okay. So what had happened is, while I was working, Michael Eisner was over here, way up here. I was over here doing TV. I was an exclusive television deal. I was 25, 6 years old. And I'd written 3 stories. One was called Splash, about a man falling in love with a mermaid. It was basically, oh, thank you. It was basically, I wrote the script. It was basically, how could I fall in love? How do I find an honest, real, great girl in the city of Los Angeles? And I thought, impossible. So I made her a mermaid. So I wrote that. Then I wrote another script, the story called Night Shift. Then I wrote another one, and then one called Xanadu. Xanadu was a roller disco movie because that was what was going on at the time. And I had this arrangement with a producer on the lot, a big senior producer, and somehow the big senior producer didn't really want to share credit with me, even though that was the deal. So I think he delivered to your studio that Brian Grazer has a deal with you guys, and I was given the ultimatum: either stay here at Paramount or go try to have luck at Universal with the Xanadu movie.
Is it Larry Gordon?
Larry Gordon.
Oh my God! I never.
And
knew
so
this.
I decide.
He screwed me. Oh, go on.
Yeah. So I decide.
Where's the phone?
So I decide I'm way too young to be fighting with a whole system. I'm going to stay at Paramount. I'm going to do what I was contracted to do. And I tell my lawyer, I get a lawyer. I only have till 6 o'clock at night, 6 p.m. to decide my life. And I didn't even know what my life was, but I knew my life was ending at 6 o'clock if I didn't make the right decision. So I make apparently the right decision, and I say to my lawyer, get as much money as possible for this Xanadu thing, take my name off it, give me Splash and Night Shift and the other one, and I'll be happy. He gets me, at that time, a very substantial amount of money. And I stayed at Paramount, and I ended up finished writing the movie Splash, which I ended up getting made and was quite successful. And you were
Did I pass on that movie?
not you, someone that worked the several levels down did, yeah.
See, the irony is,
And then at the end, we were
I'm
together.
getting more
on it.
annoyed as we go along. The irony is, he made Splash at Disney. He took Disney from just making Disney product to
Right.
Touchstone product.
Right.
I then went to Disney and took complete credit for Splash, by the way.
I understand.
That it
makes
was
sense.
my idea. I knew somebody who wrote it.
Yeah.
It worked out very well.
As you should.
It's amazing what research will do. So wait, I want to go back 1 second now to your youth.
Okay.
Because
Yes.
you created for yourself this hair thing, the spiked hair.
Yeah.
First of all, tell me how you first figured it out.
The hair?
Yeah, the hair.
Okay.
This hair is a big piece of the Hollywood business.
Okay. The way I figured out the
I, of course, could not do that, but go on.
Okay, the way I figured out the hair, because it was a concept. I'm very concept driven, incidentally. So I'd produced a few movies that were very successful, Splash and Parenthood and a few others. And I'm realizing I'm kind of competing with a bunch of other men with beards. And many of the men with beards also had bad tempers. So they had like a moniker. They had an identity. They had beards and bad tempers. And I'm thinking, like, how do I stand out? I don't have a thing. I can't really grow a beard. And I don't really have a bad temper. So that was out. So I did think about it for years. Like, what can I do? What do you think? Somebody said I should have a nickname. I didn't like the nickname idea. And then one day I was with my daughter.
They were going to call you Shorty? Was that? That's what I read.
That was it. You're right.
Well, no wonder you didn't like it. That's not a nice thing.
Yeah, who wants to be that?
Nobody.
Be that. There was Swifty Lazar. Someone said, you got to be Shorty Grazer. I'm thinking, I don't want to be Shorty. But yes, you're right. So I'm in the swimming pool with my daughter, Sage. She's 4 years old. I pop my hair up just because I'm getting out of the water. And she goes, Dad, I like that. Like, I thought, okay. And so I say, follow me. We go into one of our guest bathrooms, and I put some gel in my hair that wasn't mine, but the wife at the time, and put the gel in, and I popped it up, and I thought, wow, she loved it. And so I thought, I'll go with that. And pretty soon, what it was a really good litmus test, because people either thought it was interesting or they thought I was a dick.
Michael always thought the latter.
Yeah.
See how wrong he was? So is it apocryphal?
Yeah, you're so well read. I can't get over this.
Is it apocryphal, or you then had pictures of yourself that you would put on like the piano in important people's houses, so you reminded them of who you were with your spiked hair?
Yes.
That's true?
True.
How did
25 years I've been doing that.
You just went to somebody's house and put your picture on their piano?
Yes. Yes. You'll yes. What happened is
It's rather aggressive.
it's
Did it work? Did it work? Did they call you up and say something?
Well, yeah, the first one worked in reverse. It was Marvin Davis, who owned 20th Century Fox at the time. He was furious, was irate, because I put the picture. It's a little heart frame. A little heart frame with rhinestones. Rhinestone heart frame. I get it to CVS. It's at that time it was under $2, and I put a picture of myself like that, you know, and I put it like right where the Reagans were and other. I put it right. I did. I remember Reagans, and you had other dignitaries and their family. I put it, slotted it right in there. And first I got a call from Mr. Davis's assistant. He's so angry, you'll never be invited. You're out of the business. Then I thought, well, that's a lot. Then I get a call back quickly saying, Mr. Davis would like to speak to you directly. He doesn't feel satisfied. So then he had to rail on me, and I thought, this is a good thing to do. And so I've been doing it ever since. I just did it at a friend's house because I'll say it, I wanted President Clinton to see it, and President Clinton sleeping at their house, and he knows me, and I thought it'd be kind of fun if he gets into the guest room and right next to the coffee machine and everything is me. So I still do it. If you invite me to your house,
So you then went and worked for Edgar Sherrick and Diane Barkley, who we just mentioned. What was it like working? Edgar was one of the key guys at ABC who created ABC Sports, movies, television. He got out, I think Larry Gordon, who he talked about before, was his driver.
Yeah.
He got out of Sunset Boulevard when the car was going 20 miles an hour because he didn't want to go to the screening when there was going to be an agent there. And you worked for him.
I worked for him.
And how was that?
Good and horrible. I mean, good in that, horrible in that his daughter wrote a book about his bipolarity. So I didn't know he was bipolar, but he would yell at me all the time. Then he'd love me. So it was loving and yelling. Then it became loving and firing me. So he'd go, "You're fired." So then what would happen is he'd fire me, and then his partner would walk me to my car, say, "I'll get you out of being fired. Give me 3 weeks. Just play golf with me." So fortunately, I was on the golf team. So I'd play golf with this guy, Dan Blatt, every day, and then he'd get me back on the job. Now, so I got back on the job because the good news about Sherrick was I was like an assistant, but he said, anything you can create, you can produce. So you can go from zero. So I produced two ideas of mine that were really highly rated. One was called Zuma Beach, 24 Hours of the Day in the Life of Zuma Beach, starring Suzanne Summers, very big ratings at NBC. And the other was the beginning of a 20-hour miniseries on the 10 Commandments, using each commandment as an underlying theme in a contemporary moral dilemma. And so that was all very good for me, and then I ended up being at your place.
So then let's go to the 40-year relationship with Ron Howard. I actually wrote a book about partnerships, and one of the chapters is about this relationship, which created almost 90% probably of what we talked about in these movies. And it's an amazing relationship. How did that come about? Ronnie Howard was on Happy Days, played Richie. He was on Mayberry, RFD, playing, what was that character's name?
Opie, yeah.
There you go. And he had made one movie called Eat My Dust, I think.
Right.
And you were on the Paramount lot.
Yes.
Oh, I should say, let's back up one thing. You did say, like every 2 weeks, you wanted to meet somebody important. And you, at some point, decided it wasn't only going to be in the entertainment business.
Right.
So just give me a list of some of the people you just worked through their assistants to get to see them.
Well, okay, so during...
Oh, and what did Castro think about your hair when you?
Oh, right. Oh, so you're talking about the people that are not in the movie business.
Right,
too.
the other people. Before we get to Ronnie.
Fidel Castro, of course.
He laughed at your hair?
He liked my hair. Fidel Castro, I had a 6.5 hour lunch with him, and there were a few other guys that were friends of mine that were there in Havana, and for 3.5 hours, I don't think he took a breath. He just kept talking. And then he looked at me and stared and said, "How do you do your hair?" And that was the only one question he asked all of us. So I think he likes the fatigues and he likes the hair. So yeah.
So who else?
Well, so many. I mean, Dr. Jonas Salk, who created the polio vaccine, Edward Teller, the father of the hydrogen bomb,
Asimov.
Isaac Asimov, that was a short meeting. He's the most prolific science fiction writer in our modern generation. I have, let's see, who else? Michael Jackson.
Michael Jackson.
I met to meet with Putin, but the thing is, I was in Moscow, but I always have this pact. The pact is that I won't make an ask of you, and you shouldn't make an ask of me. So when I got one step from Putin by seeing all of his people, because I said I want to see them first, they said, Mr. Putin is very excited to meet with you because he loved A Beautiful Mind and he's excited that you're going to be making a film on him. I said, I'm not making a film on him. And so that was the end of that. And so...
so the point I'm trying to make is...
Princess Di. I've met...
You spent like 90 minutes with her, right?
I did.
How did that happen?
I
like to gossip, by the way.
Yeah.
Sorry.
All right. Well, I sent letters to Buckingham Palace to try to see her, but then I produced Apollo 13. They happened to do a royal screening for the Apollo 13, and coincidentally, or for some reason, she sat directly across from me in this black-tie dinner, and I was gossiping with her because I felt like she doesn't want a canned speech. She wants like a real person. So I gossiped and I dished with her. I flirted with her. I did everything I could do. I asked for scoops of ice cream because they didn't have ice cream. She said she'll get it. And then I insisted that she take a scoop and I would take a scoop. So we'd go back and forth. In my mind, it was like a sexual relationship. And then I did one actual meeting later with her.
The point I'm trying to make and trying to get out into the conversation is the content that Ronnie made with Brian is not an accident. You come from Northridge, you live at the end of an old cul-de-sac, you don't have a world vision. And from there, you go to USC and you force yourself, I don't know who else in the world could do it, to meet somebody every 2 weeks who has no reason to meet with you.
Yeah.
Except for you never asked to meet with me. Never mind.
Yeah. Well, that was industry.
Oh, right. Yeah, but even in industry, you never asked to meet with me. So I'm getting over it finally. All right, so now we're back to Ronnie Howard.
Ronnie Howard.
You're meeting him.
Okay, so with Ron Howard was this. So now I'm still meeting people in the industry. I'd met with Robert Evans. I've met all these different characters. And I look out my window on the Paramount lot. I was on the 3rd floor. I could see everything. I used to see you and Barry Diller, like, very excited, talking, doing thing. And so...
We had a few conversations.
Yeah, okay. But in any event, so I see Ron Howard. I go, oh, my God, there's Ron Howard. That's my day. So I yell out
Meaning that's your day. He's somebody for you to meet with.
Yeah, because I was doing it every day at that time.
Oh, my God.
Every single day. So I thought, that's my day. So I yell out the window. I go, Opie, run, like this. And I scared the hell out of him. Like, he ran behind he's very shy. So he ran behind a soundstage.
He thought you were on coke, frankly.
By the way, I think he did.
He did. He thought you were so crazy that you were, like, hyped up.
No drugs, but still, I was this. So anyway, I yell, he hides, and I then call his office, and I say, I was the guy that yelled out the window, blah, blah, blah. So I ended up having a meeting with him. And when I met with him, there was no empirical evidence that he could actually really direct a Main Street feature movie. But then again, there was no empirical evidence that I could produce a mainstream feature movie. So I thought, two guys aspiring to do something. He had an aura of goodness about him that I was very attracted to. I felt like that aura of goodness will win. And I thought, I was a very excited guy full of ideas. I was kind of an idea machine, really.
How are you different from him?
Completely different. I mean, I'm a very outside person. I'm a prospector. He is a driller. So I could find the hole that the oil will be in. I'll go, this is the hole. Don't look in any other holes. Or if you're a fisherman, here's your pole. There's the water. Don't get another pole, Ron. And so, I would say do Apollo 13, or I would say A Beautiful Mind, which I hired another director first, quite frankly. And then I ended up with the right director, certainly, with Ron Howard. But so ultimately, that's sort of how the partnership works.
You did something that is unusual.
Okay.
In Hollywood, a director has his own deal, his own back
yes.
end. A producer has his own. Often, a film is a big success because of the director. Sometimes because of the producer, sometimes because of the whole group, the gash is put together. But you and he came up with a different idea, which is probably why you've lasted for 40 years. What was that idea? Or I know it anyway.
What is it?
50-50.
God.
You guys agreed, no matter who was making what, you did things outside of the partnership, and he did. You split and that's unheard of. It really is unheard of. It's really like a marriage.
It is really like a marriage. And I even offered to him earlier on because right after Splash, he was catapulted into, a coveted major director, and he was making, 7 or 8 times more than I was making. So I said, let's go 60-40, and he wouldn't do it. He said, no, we're going 50-50. I go, okay. And so we went 50-50. And by the way, over that 40 years or 35 years, it has shifted many times, but it ultimately, the alchemy of it all works quite well.
It's interesting when you talk about that deal, which is a 1-minute conversation walking around a lot, how it is so different than everybody else works on. And one of the problems with the media business, which is one of the things we are talking about here, is if you listen to Woody Allen, he said, if it wasn't a business, it would be called show. And the fact that it is a business, and today part of the problem is there are series being made where they cost $20 million an episode, or Amazon has series at $50 million an episode, or nobody has the strength to tell a director, don't make a 3.5-hour film in general, or all the things that go into the business have been lost during this transition, not by Ronnie Howard and Brian, but in general. So when that comes back, and people start thinking about content, and content is also a business, and thinking about finding people who meet somebody every day who understands what a good story is and also quality and goodness and positivity, it will survive. Now, in the surviving of it, you have a bunch of rules that I've read about. You probably don't even remember it, but you do have a bunch of rules that you go by. Do you know what they are? Because you've written about them. I know what they are.
Well, I don't know. I mean, I have lots of different sets of rules, but...
Well, so I'll give you, for instance,
Okay.
if you get in a fight, never tell the other person off.
Okay.
That seems to be...
Never.
Right.
I never tell them. If I get in a fight with somebody, I never yell at them. I never tell them. For all they know, they think we're buddies.
Once you're a professional, no more blue jeans and T-shirts. You got to be professional.
Yeah, you have to be professional.
One drink at a function, keep your sanity.
Yeah, well, I used to drink. I like to have a glass of wine. I do like to drink, but I had a rule of never drinking in any business environment, ever. Not just, yeah.
Be prepared. This is one I can remember.
Be prepared, be on time.
Right.
Yeah.
And you know what? A lot of people aren't. You'll have a meeting with somebody who wants to make a movie. They're not prepared. You have a meeting with some important director. They come an hour or two late. I was at ABC, checking people in for a screening. That was my level. And the president of the company was 15 minutes late. And he said to me, young man, I'm always 15 minutes late so they know who's important.
Oh, God, that's terrible.
And I thought, oh, my God.
That's just
really?
the opposite.
Yeah, I know.
It's
I know.
stupid. But I even had a crazy one. You want to hear mine?
Yeah.
I had a crazy one where on Splash, I hired a director before Ron, or earlier on, that was very, very vain. So he dressed impeccably, and he would always be late also. He was late, and he dressed really well. And out of that, I won't take you through the whole story. I thought to myself, you know what? First of all, he's fired for being late, and I realized that directors, the ones that are supposed to have the most empathy, shouldn't be thinking about them. They should be thinking about the characters, the actors, the environment. And so I never hired a director that dressed too well. I mean,
But
if you think
also,
about it, Scorsese used to not dress well. I mean, none of these guys dressed well. The master filmmakers were slobs, and they get lost all the time. They directionally don't know, but they really know people, and they know stories, these great ones.
And you did say at one point that when you interview a director and they talk about...
Oh.
What do they talk about that makes you nervous as a director? Like you told me, or I read, if they talk about sports, they got too much aggression.
Yeah, that too, yes, too much aggression. If they're using sports metaphors all the time, like, come on, kick us through the goal, right? When they get really aggro like that, I just know that is not for me, And they have blurred vision.
They talk about food.
Some guys only talked about, yes, I had somebody that only used full, because he said, he kept saying to me, you got a full plate, how can you have another idea for a movie? I go, I think to myself, I shouldn't say anything.
So one of your other rules...
The full plate thing.
How do you deal with stars?
The way okay, I'm very patient with stars. You have to make sure, you have to have smart eyes to start. You have to be really connected. You can't be distracted. You have to be focused. You have to listen. You have to be smart, and you must be honest back to them. You have to do it nicely, but you cannot bullshit them. If you bullshit them, you're screwed forever. It'll just blow up on you. So, and I also, with stars, I have patience for it because you're only working with a movie, on a movie for 6 months. And if if you believe that is going to be your competitive advantage and that will work for your movie, then you tough it out. That's the end.
So how about making content for the streaming world?
Okay, making content for the streaming world. Well, it's still the same for me. I mean, I like to only, for the most part, when it's personal to me, I try to only make movies in the movie side or television shows that are very conceptual, that are marketable. If I can't answer the question of how will it be marketable, how will it be viewed, how do you say it in one sentence? I have some guy that goes, I can't explain it. If you can't explain it, I'm not going to do it. I also feel on movies, this is a digression, because I was once at a party and I was, some very judgmental she guys were saying to me, like, oh, what are you doing now, Brian? And so I was I was making 3 movies. I could only get out of my mouth 2 because I thought the other one, they would shit on it. And I thought, if I can't say it, I shouldn't be doing it.
Wow. So, okay, AI.
AI.
What do you think about AI in the development of content?
Okay, AI, I think is a very efficient way. It can be used as a very efficient method for execution of movies and television, to help execute. You can do pre-visualization. You can do a lot of things with AI. It should not be involved in creation. So execution, not creation. That's how I use AI. I use it as a partner in collaborating in those different ways that are execution-oriented, but not creation-oriented.
So we have some time for questions. Raise your hand. We have microphones. I wanted to, in my section of it, I wanted to give a sense of what a really fine, successful producer is like. There are not any others like this one, but there are others, but not a lot. And to me, that is the answer to the whole media problem we have today. But there are other people who will have, back there in the back, right there with a hand up.
First of all, thank you both. Brian, I love you. I love all your movies. Apollo 13's, I've showed it to my staff as a team building exercise. But I didn't know any of the other things that you just shared. And again, Fidel Vargas Hispanic Scholarship Fund. Who is the person that you met that you didn't expect to have that kind of an interesting conversation with, or then led to a relationship? Is there one person that you thought that just stands out to you that you didn't think was going to stand out?
Well, I've had really influential, okay. Two different people that stand out. One is a woman named Veronica de Negre that was tortured in Chile and survived. I met her because in my curiosity conversations, I met with Sting, who was once a school teacher, and I thought, how does a school teacher become a rock star? So he was what you imagine him to be. And that was that. But then one day he said, would you like to come over and meet somebody, not famous, because I was I met with Sting and Bruce Springsteen very, very early on, and they took this woman on the Amnesty tour. So I met her. And so she was very influential to me because it wasn't about the torture that she endured, it's how she survived the torture. And so surviving the torture turned me on to, gave me the ability to understand living in an alternate reality, because that's how she had to survive for her 18 months of being tortured unpredictably every single day. Was living in another story. And I was able to transport that 20 years later into my understanding of how to make a movie about schizophrenia. So that was very helpful. And she helped me in other ways because it got me focused on survival itself. So when Apollo 13 came around, I thought, what should this be about? It's about so many things. It's about aerospace, it's about the Apollo missions, it's about so many different things. But I thought really, ultimately what it's about is it's about human beings and survival, reaching inside of yourself to summon something inside of yourself that you never thought existed in order to survive. And so, so that person was very influential in my life. That's an example.
Next question, Tina Brown.
Thank you. So many directors, obviously, who become successful get a huge amount of cultural leverage, and power, and they want the sort of final cut. And to me, it always feels as if it's a disaster that when directors can't have a producer coming in and saying, this is too long, this is too, sentimental or whatever. When you're working with directors, do you give that power to the director, or do you insist that you are the last say in what this is going to be like?
Well, early on, I used to insist on the last say, final cut. And the studio usually wanted me to have that anyway, because I'm friendly with the artist, and I'm also in the business, as Michael's, in the business of making movies that make money for people, because it's not a singular art form. It's expensive and it's a big experience. So now, unfortunately, I share this sometimes with other directors, and so yes. But I have had to use my final cut once because the owner of I had to let a director go and I had to recut the whole movie because he was unwilling to make the movie 2 hours. He thought it was perfect at 3. No one thought it was perfect at 3. I didn't think it was perfect at 3, so I had to just do it all myself. It was one person that very much didn't like me for that. But that was the end, yeah.
Right here in the white shirt there, the front, 3rd row, 4th row.
Hi, I'm a young filmmaker. I'm a director. I went to USC as well, so fight on. I'm curious on your stance and opinion just on the way that development is going in the industry, of kind of like a lack of trust in original story at the moment, and this like very clear push for sequels and recreations and et cetera. And kind of, your opinion, your stance, like, I believe in this new generation coming through and having a lot to say, but there's kind of this like issue between getting past that barrier and just like what you have to say on it. I worked in development. I had a lot of people rejecting really amazing stories. So just kind of curious.
Okay, so I think what you're saying is right now, because there's such risk aversion, that the studios and the streamers are saying, we only want to do things that are built on already existing IP, right? Okay, so the way to get around it is you find subjects that are worlds that have universality to them. So it's literally, there are worlds that have universality to them. Or there are themes like love, family, brotherhood, self-respect, those identity, those things. So, for example, the movie 8 Mile that I did was only because I met this guy, Old Dirty Bastard, 10 years before that. And Old Dirty Bastard was so crazy that it got my attention, and I thought, I'm going to build something, a movie about the understanding of rap, and that rap is not an inferior subculture, but it is in fact the culture. So I picked this very big subculture that was going to then become the culture. So then after that, I was able to use that paradigm to do the series Empire. And then I was able to do many other things. Or Friday Night Lights morphed into a Dynasty, which is on the 10-part on the New England Patriots. So you have to try to find worlds. And the way I was able to always do that is through these curiosity conversations that I still do for 30 years, every 2 weeks, on just discovering different worlds. You have to have a world. You can't, I think niche-y things are going to be quite hard to do.
You mentioned something, though, that is broken today in the media. It's such big business that there are committees upon committees upon committees to approve new people or new idea, and they do fall back on sequels and all of that. However, I was at a function, and I was with Ted Sarandos, who runs Netflix and does it very well, and I said, explain to me how Baby Reindeer came about. Because it's the #1 Netflix movie of all movies in every country in the world. And he said, there's a woman in England who we know, she kind of is by herself, and she's done 2 or 3 things that are pretty good, and she just did Baby Reindeer, and we didn't really know about it. And it really spoke to me about when I was doing it. And everybody says it was always better when I did it. and I think it maybe is better now. But and then each of these companies, there were smaller businesses, fewer people. If Brian came into me with Splash, which he didn't, if he came into me with Splash, I could say, hey, let's go make that.
Yeah, you could.
Today, I will say, show me the data, show me the projected audience. Are there more women or dogs or men or apes or who's
boxes
involved?
can we check?
So the business has become a big business with big money, and therefore there are too many people doing it. I think if you hear Brian, and I wish there were 20 of them, and they're not, they're like 3. I wish there were more. And I wish they could get through the clutter, because it's always the new person, the person who you never thought with hair that had a spike on it would ever make a great movie. Anyway, thank you all very much for coming. Terrific.
Thank you. Wow. You're so good. Thank you.